Welcome back to another edition of Higher Education Today. I'm your host, Steven Roy Goodman. Today we'll be talking about mental health and music. In fact, our guests actually sing about mental health. Maren and Charlotte Wallevik are sisters from Norway who perform as Oakland Rain. They're on tour in the United States, where they've been an opening act for Judy Collins. Welcome, Maren and Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. And maybe if we can just start with perhaps not such a simple question.
Yeah.
Why do you sing about mental health?
We really care about mental health. We've been affected by mental health issues ourselves and know a lot of people who have as well. And we think that it's important to break stigma and to talk about it and sing about it and have an open conversation about it.
Well, let's have that open conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
So can you delve a little bit into that a little bit more? Because when people talk about mental health, often they talk about meeting with psychiatrists and psychologists and psychology professors, but you're using the medium of music.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're trying to communicate the experience of struggling with mental health or knowing someone who struggles with mental health through a sort of conversational writing, if that's an okay way to describe it.
Yeah, and to kind of humanize it.
Yes.
Because everyone has a mental health and some of us are luckier than others.
Yes.
In regards of how our mental health is. And we also really want to convey that there is help. But I think music is maybe an underrated tool in the conversation about mental health, because music is a universal language, and I think we've had a lot of people come up to us after concerts when we play our songs that go into topics of mental health, and I think a lot of people are kind of surprised to hear songs about it. So it's really wonderful to be able to bring the conversation into music, and we also get inspired by artists ourselves who talk about and sing about mental health.
And also it's perhaps a way to access the theme in a different way maybe, and perhaps not as scary, because sometimes we feel that if you need to talk about something and you don't know how to talk about it, music is a way of giving people access to it and sort of lower the guard. That's how we feel, at least. Yes.
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, I attended one of your concerts a while ago in Virginia.
Yes.
Judy Collins was performing, and I did not know about the two of you, and I was surprised and shocked about how, one, the quality of your music, but two, the content. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show, because I thought it took a lot of guts to talk about mental health in front of a big audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's very nice to hear you say that. We want to be brave in our writing, and our latest album is very much about bravery and fear and hope, and trying to sort of deal with all of those things at the same time, especially in times like these, and where there's a lot of things going on in the world. And I think it's very important, at least if you feel sort of the need as an artist to, as we did, to feel the need to talk about things that are difficult and perhaps not so easy, to choose to be brave and do that if we have a platform, as we do. So we find it very important, yes, and also fulfilling, because we think there's a lot of purpose to it. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of the purpose,
Yes.
some people might say that there's been a lot of discussion about mental health, particularly for the current generation in college and a little bit younger and a little bit older.
Yeah.
But some people have said, well, why do we keep talking about it? Why don't people just be a little tougher and just get over whatever the thing is they're trying to get over?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a lot of things in life, I think once you experience it yourself, if it's any sort of difficulty or struggle that you either have to overcome or learn to live with, I think it's then you kind of have another perspective on the matter. And I think that's why we try to convey the message that mental health is important, and mental illness is important. Like, it's important to talk about, and it's real, you know. So I think there are a lot of different ways to kind of approach it, and there are so many different types of therapy and different ways of approaching mental health, and I think that's important to kind of respect, you know, like we're different as people.
And also that it's a spectrum. You know, I think also with the language of mental health today, the word anxiety can mean worrying, and it can also mean staying in bed, not being able to get outside, you know. So there's a lot of space in between there that we still need to sort of have conversation about it, so that we can talk about one way or the other, and we should be able to talk about the very difficult side of it, and the more sort of the side where it's more about maybe tools to overcome it, and you may not even need therapy, you know.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of versions of it, and we totally get that, and so but we have been very affected by it, by actually the whole spectrum, so therefore we're trying to talk about the whole, like all of the sides to it, and that needing therapy is not there shouldn't be any shame in that. It's if you need medicine for something, if you need help for something in health, it's the same with mental health as far as we see it. Yeah.
And also that it's like mental health is important also when it's not mental health struggles or diagnosis or anything. Like mental health is like everyone has a mental health. So it's a broad spectrum.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also with, I think we've talked a lot about the language of it, because an anxiety disorder is not the same as having anxiety or the feeling of anxiety. So there are some words that make it a bit difficult to know how serious it is and how much it can impact your life. As well as with depression, we can use that word very much now as like sadness, but it's also creating lack of ability to do things if it's bad enough.
Yeah.
And so I think we just need to talk more about it, so we know sort of, we can sort of recognize ourselves in where we're at the spectrum, and thereby get the help we need, or find the tools if it's that. Yeah.
When you're performing, do you get nervous before you go on stage?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, we get like butterflies in our stomach, but in a good way.
Yeah. I think we feel the need to convey the message, so that's sort of more important than how we look or how we seem or how someone sort of sees us.
Yeah.
But of course, sometimes, like we played the Ryman a few weeks ago, and we were very nervous. So it definitely
sometimes
happens.
the nerves are like
there.
Yeah.
But I suspect that some people could ask about that as well, which is that,
Yeah.
let's say you're an athlete and you get
Yes.
nervous before a big game,
Yes.
or you're a performer, it could be a music performer, a drama performer, or anything, and you get a little nervous.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think also with any sort of activity or genre where you are very visible and you're seen, it can be intimidating and overwhelming and make you nervous to feel that now everyone's eyes at me, and am I performing right? Am I doing the right thing? Is it good enough? All of those thoughts and feelings, of course, we felt that. But
especially
I think
when it matters to you, you know, like if it's something that you really care about, you wanna. And I think for us, the most important thing with our concerts is to convey the message and sing the songs and communicate with the audience. Like,
and we also remind ourselves that we're sort of trying to convey messages of the imperfect human, which is perfectly perfect. So trying to be perfect ourselves would be sort of against the cause. But we sometimes have to remind ourselves, because we live in a society which is very much a highlight reel and everything's pretty and perfect. Yeah.
Well, speaking of societies, I realize you're Norwegian, but you've been in the United States touring, so no doubt you've interacted with a lot of people in the United States.
Yes.
Are there things about the United States that have surprised you as you've been touring?
Yes.
Yes.
We have, there's a very openness, so people can just come up and talk to us without knowing us. We're a bit more shy in Norway, maybe. Not in a bad way, just different. So suddenly we're in full conversation with a new person that we've never met before, which is lovely. I think that's great. And to just talk to new people, I think that's maybe the biggest one.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. That's maybe the biggest like difference between Norwegian culture
and maybe also the language-wise, that here it's the mother tongue of people here, so people perhaps take it in even more when we sing about difficult stuff, while in Norway it's one layer out because it's a different language. So it feels a bit more like real and intimate, sort of, when we sing, I feel. Yeah.
And why did you write the songs in English?
That's a good question.
Yes, it is. We also write in Norwegian, but for these matters, we really care about having it reach out to as many as possible so that anyone can hear it. Yeah.
And what about universities? This is a university-based show. You know, we tend to tape at many, many universities in the United States and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Have you interacted with college or university campuses in Norway or the United States?
Yeah, we have. We've actually played concerts at different universities in Norway, and it has been a really wonderful experience. I think in general, the perspective of education and learning is always a wonderful door to walk through, because it's kind of, we all as humans learn new things all the time, and I think as musicians and artists, we want to learn too. So yeah, it's been really wonderful in those forums to be having conversations with the students, and it's been wonderful. And we haven't played at any universities in the U.S. This is like our first time as Oakland Rain in here at Manhattan University. So it's our first sort of occasion at a university in the U.S. So it's really exciting.
Yes.
Well, welcome. And we should say that Manhattan University, we have done a taping here before. You're the second taping. The first taping we did was with a woman named Dr. Ruth, who's no longer with us. But we're delighted to have you back here. And Manhattan University has a production group that learns television production. And they're actually filming this today.
They are, and they're doing a great job.
Yes.
We've met many lovely students already today. So it's very cool to be in a creative space. Yes.
Well, speaking of the creative spaces, can you say a little bit about how you create? Different people create in different ways.
Yes, that's very true. We approach music very differently. Charlotte writes lyrics first, and I write melodies first, usually, or just like the main chorus sentence or the title, and then we get together and sort of put it together afterwards. But it's never the exact same way, though. It can happen from a train, or the idea can be on like walking down the street or anywhere, really. Yeah.
But we usually like work on a lot of songs at the same time.
Yes.
Like it's kind of like a puzzle sometimes,
Yes.
and so we kind of help each other to figure out what parts are like belong together in the songs and the albums. So yeah, it's but it's kind of different every time, like a little bit different every time.
But we've realized we're very much album artists. We like to have it be a whole body of work so that we can cover different sides of the storyline or the emotions. Yes.
And why did you decide to do your own rather than do a lot of covers? A lot of new musicians will do a lot of covers because people know those songs.
Yeah.
But you're taking it's more, it takes a lot more guts to say, well, here's some new music, and I want you to hear this new music, and you've never heard it before.
Yeah, I think for us it's just been like a natural sort of process that we love songwriting, and it's it's like our way into the music is the songwriting. So for us it's been just like really natural to kind of write our own songs.
Came into music through songwriting first. Like we learned piano and guitar, and then we discovered that songwriting exists and we can write our own songs. And with our first meeting with grief in a very early age, we started writing songs. So that's sort of been the pillar, and then the singing and instruments and all of the other things are sort of on top of that. So, yeah,
we feel like we're songwriters first.
Yes.
And we've been so lucky and fortunate to be able to write songs for theater plays and for movies and like different types of projects.
Yes.
And it's really fun to kind of challenge yourself in different ways. Yeah.
Have you ever written about something that when you start, you think you're going to go in one direction and then you end up in a different direction?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we discover that the meaning can be completely new for the audience. We've talked with the audience after a concert, and they've said, oh, this song reminds me of this person in my life or some situation in my life, and then we're like sort of open our eyes to the idea that the song can be about more than just one thing, and that happens often, and that's sort of the goal too, that it can mirror people's experience however they interpret it. So we really want that to happen.
And I find that fascinating because a song can mean something to so many people for so many different reasons.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's really cool how we as humans can relate to songs, and movies and different types of art through our own lens.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really wonderful to be able to share your own experiences and then someone else kind of interpret it their own way and maybe take it into their own lives.
Yeah, and also I remember you said, I think it was an actress who said that the best thing you can do in art is just to be completely yourself, because when you are that, it will mirror other people's experience, because the human experience is universal and we experience the same emotions on different levels. And it is very true. Once you're trying to be someone else, it really doesn't, you should really just be yourself 100%, even though it can be hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, though, are there some musicians that you have grown up listening to that in some ways have inspired you?
Absolutely. Simon and Garfunkel with the harmonies, definitely
Yes.
on top there.
Yeah.
Judy Collins.
Elton John,
Dolly Parton. Some Norwegian artists, and Eva Cassidy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we, and John Lennon. Yeah, we grew up on a lot of folk music and learned about harmonies in songwriting, and especially with Elton John and Bernie Taupin.
Yeah.
How they wrote together, that one does the lyrics and one does the melody. That fascinated us very much, because that's kind of how we work. So,
And also Joni Mitchell.
yes,
And Bob Dylan and
list goes on.
yeah.
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 But definitely those who dare to write about the difficult stuff too, like whatever it may be, if it's a societal issue or a personal issue, or to dare to not try to sort of be pretty all the time or everything to be perfect all the time, that we're supposed to talk about the human experience.
Well, I think that's really hard to do. I mean, you mentioned Bob Dylan. I mean, you think about his song Hurricane, that's about quite a topic.
Yes.
And you're singing about quite a topic as well.
Yes.
So it's not so easy. It's not just let's be happy.
Yeah.
It's let's explore the human condition in a
Yes.
very sophisticated way. And that's what I think is really interesting about your music.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
saying that.
That's
That
so
means a
nice.
lot. Yeah. I think we some people think we're just very happy all the time and sing, and once they go into the lyrics, they're like, oh, there's quite some stuff here. But we find that being sort of the purpose, and especially with this newest album, it's part of a double album to explore the human inner conflict between fear and freedom, and we're covering the concept of fear in this record, and it's called Twin Flames Part 1, The Evergreen, and about growth and hope and bravery. So it's very much relevant with mental health and human difficulties. Yes.
I wonder if this has something to do with your background as Vikings. If maybe you're kind of being brave Vikings and also thinking about it.
Hopefully we're just brave artists, and I think obviously we talk a lot about what we want to sort of convey, and we're very much on the same page. So it's very nice to be 2 and 3 with our third sister to be together in it, because sometimes it's difficult to be vulnerable and out there and just sort of holding the lanterns of hope out there and using ourselves and our experiences as sort of examples to mirror others. So
And I realize we only have a few minutes left, and I realize we're speaking to an American audience, but are there things that you sing about in Norwegian that are a little bit different than what you sing about in English?
Oh wow, it's definitely also mental health. I think nature is a common theme, but it's usually used as metaphors for something deeper and something internal.
And we do that in English too. So I
Yeah.
think it's kind of
But for now, the main Norwegian project we've done is a Henrik Ibsen project, where we've taken some of his poems and composed music to it. So that's specifically Norwegian. Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be a bad thing to mention a little bit about Ibsen for an American audience.
Yeah, it's the most played screenwriter after Shakespeare. Playwright, yes. Very from A Doll's House. The writer of A Doll's House is probably the biggest thing, and he wrote amazing poems in the 1800s when he lived, and we wanted to show them and bring them to light.
They are like less known.
Yes.
His theater plays are probably was like most known and
Yes.
famous. So
Yes.
he was an amazing poet. So
Yes.
that's also a project we're doing,
Yes.
working on now.
Yeah.
And it's really
But it also reflects the human condition the same way it does today. It's just in a different language and in a different, more, it's a different way of writing it, but definitely about longing and hope and love and fear and all of the things we experience today. Yeah.
And how else would you like us to experience this? We've got a few seconds left. What else do you want an audience to take from this discussion?
I think that if you're a young person or any person, that there is hope. Mental health is real. You're seen. We see you. And you are wanted here on this earth.
you're not alone.
You are not alone, yeah.
Even though it sometimes may feel like it, and reaching out for help or community or friendship is really brave and really rewarding.
Yes, and that's our coming short film later this year, hopefully, is about this, yes.
And what about people who help other people?
Yes.
How do you want them to recognize when somebody needs to listen to more of your music or to take seriously mental health issues?
Wow, yeah, that's a
that's a
big
good
question.
question.
I think the early symptoms, perhaps we just don't ask enough in the beginning to ask an extra question whether someone is okay. And we also find that it could be very important early in school to learn about the early symptoms of mental health issues so that people around you or you yourself can sort of recognize it. But as for now, I think it is to ask the extra question and be brave enough to say, I don't know how you're doing, and I want to ask one more time just to make sure how you're doing. And sometimes we don't even know how we're doing, but to know that someone is there is really important. Yeah.
And also, like, I think a very typical symptom is isolation.
Yeah.
To isolate yourself from people around you or from your classmates or the community you're in. And so that's one of the main symptoms that we've seen and experienced, but also it's not necessarily visible. So I think just kind of having the open conversation about it, and it doesn't actually have to be something like an issue or a problem. And we may be able to prevent the issues if we talk more about it and make it like a bigger part of the everyday conversation.
Yeah. And also to have maybe set times where you say you're going to call that person or message them so they know there's something coming for a conversation. That can also feel like a hope if you feel very lost. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Great questions.
Yes.
Well, great answers. And thank you,
Thank
for
you.
coming to the United States, and thank you for coming on Higher Education Today.
Thank you so much.
And of course, I want to thank you, our audience, for joining us for another edition of Higher Education Today. And a special thanks to Manhattan University for hosting this discussion with Maren and Charlotte. And after they sing their song, Dear Josephine, we will continue to bring you quality discussions about important education matters. I'm Steven Roy Goodman, and you've been watching Higher Education Today.
Thank you again, Steve, and Higher Education Today and Manhattan University for bringing us together for this conversation. Here is Dear Josephine, which is a very special song to us.
Dear Josephine, are you attending the event? Dear Josephine, I wonder how your year was spent. Everybody at the fair was asking me if you'd be there, and I just didn't know what to say. If you're down or feeling blue, I could break it down for you. It wasn't that fun anyway. Dear Josephine, have you been looking for a cure? And dear Josephine, have you been wondering what for? home to after every waiting room, trying so hard to translate. And I wonder if you feel alright, perhaps with time, but sometimes pain can be so hard to communicate. Josephine, have they been misreading the signs? And dear Josephine, oh, is it for the 100th time? Everybody at the fair was asking why you weren't there. And it's not like you didn't try, but with me there is nothing to prove. I'll always save a seat for you, and we can also skip over the wine. Dear Josephine, are you attending